Oh, you go to the valley in the winter?
Oh yeah, it's so sweet, man. Like January, February. No, it is
Yeah.
January, February. Like on the south faces. Like I've climbed on El Cap
Okay.
in February and had the whole like you're the only one on El Cap. It's sick.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
So,
What routes have you done on El Cap?
well, in the wintertime, it's just cragging. I mean, I did the nose a long time ago. I've done the west face, the east buttress, but mostly just cragging.
Yeah. Do you have any recs for cragging at the base of El Cap? Any particular pitches?
Like, well, you got free blasts, but yeah, that first pitch of free blast is so good. That 10C, that Sacker Cracker. I took a huge whipper on it a couple of years ago. I like went into the off width the wrong way, and I started down climbing. And I slipped and I kicked my big cam out.
Oh shit.
It was pretty good.
Hell yeah.
It might have even been on my birthday too, because my birthday's in February. I usually try to go there for my birthday. So
Nice.
if the weather cooperates, yeah.
Yeah. What about what is it, Moby Dick left or center or whatever it is?
Yeah, I did one of those that same day actually. I think. Yeah, it was like the hands to the white hands.
Yeah, to like you just like a 30-foot splitter fist climb. Yeah.
Yeah, that thing was good.
Cool.
Yeah, it's so good. But I go to Tuolumne a lot in the summertime, and we'll just day trip it there too, because it's like 3 hours.
That's not too bad. It looks like we've really kind of a long lasting winter. I was hoping to be able to get through the pass, but it looks like that's not going to be the case.
Yeah. Last year, they opened up Tuolumne the day before they opened it up to cars on for bikes, and I rode my bike in from Tioga, and then I brought shoes in a chalk bag, and I sold it on Stately Pleasure Dome. It was so cool. Like just no cars, just people on bikes, and
That's
it was
cool.
really cool. Hopefully I'll be able to do that again.
Yeah. Yeah. How often do you get to travel for climbing outside of the Lover's Leap kind of area?
I do a lot of day tripping. This season in the summer, like tomorrow, I'm going to Caledown. You ever been to Caledown? Calaveras? It's really good. It's 1,200-foot dome. Generally, not many people are there, if anyone. There's some, Yosemite quality granite. And we're getting on a newish route. It's a 15 pitch route. That's how big it is. It's got a pitch of 12 minus on it, and then a handful of pitches of 11. Looks really, really good.
Cool.
Last year I climbed on the Hulk like 6 or 7 times, and we just get up early, hike in, and
Have you done Sunspot?
I have.
How's that kind of like, how's the crux? I guess there's like the run out traverse, and then there's like the 11B corner. I was kind of intimidated by that climb last time I was up there.
It's been a while. I climbed that in 2017. I didn't climb it last summer, but it was good. It was sustained, but yeah, it was really good. It's such a beautiful corner. That rock is just so good.
The rock is awesome. Yeah, we had to bail off of Positive Vibrations this last season because of the wind.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I've never experienced such absolutely wild winds than I did
really?
on we came out of the shelter on the top of Pitch 4, and it was just like blasting like constant 40-mile-an-hour winds with like gusts that were even more insane. And I was just like, if this is crazy, I can't even imagine what Patagonia is like, and the winds that are down there. It's just like, this is just absolutely fucked.
And did you have any problems wrapping down with the winds?
No, I mean, like I said, the second you get back down around the almost like the nose of it, you're totally protected from the wind. It was just the upper pitches that were just getting absolutely hammered.
Yeah, rad. Yeah, I hiked in a couple times last year, and it was so cold we bailed. And like one time we pulled in, and the lake had white caps, and we're just like, nah.
Yeah, if it's windy down there, it's probably fucked up there.
Yeah, exactly. They say if the lakes have white caps, don't go in there. Like, fuck, we need to get better at like looking at the weather. We're just like, let's do it.
Yeah, I feel like that's one place you can't do that. My buddy and I, like, it's kind of a drive to get up there. It's a hike to get up there. And both of us are just like, all right, if we're going to go back and redeem ourselves, like the weather has to be for sure good. And we're doing it car to car because fuck all that bivvy stuff and the campaign.
Right.
It's like, just get in and get out.
Yeah. Yeah. Car to car, it's not too bad at all. Um, and then, what's also really good is those spires across from the Hulk.
Yeah. Everyone's talking about how good those are across the valley.
Yeah, we climbed that I think it's called Free Radical.
Okay, I think that's
7 or 8 pitches. Modern day route, so bunch of bolts.
Yeah,
they rated 12A,
cool.
but it's probably a little soft, but really good. Like super, super
Cool.
good. All you need is like a single rack. So like gear wise, you don't need much. Single rack, dozen draws, and a 70-meter rope, and it goes in the shade at like after 1, so you can like start hiking in at like 9 o'clock, and when the days are long, and then just do it, and then hike out in the evenings. Pretty sweet.
Hell yeah. Yeah, when we were up there, I'm pretty sure there were some like there were some just very stereotypical dirtbags, and they had just gotten off of that route. I believe that's what they were talking about, and they were just like, it's so good, like everybody's talking about how amazing it was.
Yeah, it is good. And then I saw you guys did chocolate corners the other day.
Dude, chocolate flakes? Yeah.
Yeah, chocolate.
I keep calling it like cinnamon corners or chocolate corners. It's like, it's funny. It's the one thing is hard to say, but yeah. I'm surprised by how many people have like recognized it and said they've done it, because it seems like, at least on Mountain Project, a kind of obscure route that no one really talks about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my lady and I, we did that in February, like when it was warm. And we did that, and then did Dark and Long or Dark and Hard.
Oh, yeah. How was that one?
That was good. You kind of have to punch it in the cracks.
Okay.
And then we did the arete to the left also.
Yeah.
Saucer Full of Secrets. But unfortunately, that thing came into the sun and got really hot, and I took a little whip on that one. I thought that one was actually harder than Dark and Long or whatever.
Interesting. Yeah, everyone says that Saucer is soft and the other one's harder, so it's funny to hear that you think it's the other way around.
Yeah, I think, my excuse right now was it came into the sun, and I didn't bring enough. I linked the first into the arete, and I didn't bring enough gear. Like it was a little heady. Like I was like, whoa, like the rock quality is a little funky, and there's like ledge potential. I was a little gripped in the beginning part, which was only like the 5-10 section. But,
yeah, definitely like those two. I got to go back and get those two. I was going to try to top rope the 11, but we were fighting the weather. Yeah, there's like some storm coming in, so we just wanted to get off those pitches.
Right.
Yeah.
So you guys just had a little system come through, huh?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's been raining the last couple of days.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we had rain on Sunday, which sometimes it's good because then I get shit done around the house.
I know for sure. All the stuff we end up avoiding to go climbing. Well, nice, dude. I've got a trajectory here for kind of some stuff I want to talk about. You ready to dive in here?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So I'd like to start this conversation. Obviously this is a chance for you to like tell your origin story. And I think one thing you said that was interesting during our meet and greet was the fact that you kind of have these two worlds of surfing and climbing and how they kind of merged together, and you ended up going one direction versus the other. So I'm interested in your experience with both, how you find some similarities in the two sports, because I feel like there are some, and what ended up kind of steering you towards climbing and away from surfing.
Okay, so I started surfing when I was 13. I had an older brother that did a little bit, and I kind of looked up to him. I grew up in Southern California, the other valley, not the Valley of Stone, but the valley of like, oh my God, for sure.
What part of SoCal? I'm from San Diego. I was raised there, like 0 to 26.
Valley. Yeah, so
San Fernando Valley.
Yeah, it's like, it's like where Valley Girl was filmed, and Fast Times at Ridgemont High. Like the Frank Zappa songs. That's the Valley. It's like the total suburbs of LA. Um, Luckily, where I grew up, there 2 blocks from my house, like LA ended, and it was the foothills of Santa Monica Mountains. So I had foothills to run around, and there was caves, and actually one of those caves had been developed. I haven't climbed there yet, but like one day I was hiking in there, and I told my ex-wife, I'm like, if I ever had to live down here, I'd develop this cave. And I walked in, and there was bolts. But so yeah, I started surfing at Malibu. Super busy area. I'm sure it's totally crazy now. Really good wave. Um, I ended up getting pretty good at surfing by the time, I was 17. I like to say in high school I majored in surfing, and in college I majored in climbing. And I'm a climbing guide now, so I guess I got my degree. But I skipped a lot of high school. um, um, I lost my dad when I was 15, and then so all of a sudden there was a second car in the house. So my mom would go off to work even when before I had a driver's license. She was a substitute teacher. I'd make sure she wasn't teaching at my school, and it's like call up my buddy, like, hey man, all right, I got the car, let's go surfing. So yeah, I did a lot of surfing. Got pretty good at it. I was definitely always interested in climbing. We lived not too far from Stony Point, a pretty popular bouldering area. We'd drive by it, I'd see climbers. Um, One time we were hiking around in the Malibu Creek State Park. Teenagers smoking weed, hiding, found this cave, and then these 2 climbers came up, stashed our pipe, and we're just like, whoa, what's going on here? And like the guy set up a top rope and then fired this thing, and he was so pumped up. He's like, yeah, that was the first descent. And I went to my buddies. I'm like, man, that looked rad. We should do this. And they weren't into it. I'm like, yeah, well, let's take a class at the community college. And they just weren't into it. And for some reason, I didn't have the gung ho to just do it on my own. In high school, I also wrestled, and there's a lot of similarities with, I think, with climbing and wrestling, sort of like, one on one, kind of pushing yourself, not letting go, like not giving up. Like wrestling's super hard and physical. Like, if you give up, you're on your back, it's over. And like, when you're climbing something really hard, if you're not pushing yourself, you're in a whip or you're in a take, you're not going to do it. So a kid on my wrestling team, his brother got him into bouldering, and he's like, hey, you want to go bouldering? I was like, fuck yeah, let's do it. He's like, yeah, just bring your wrestling shoes. They look like climbing shoes. So yeah, we went out to Stony Point, and I was hooked right away. But the second time I went, I bought a pair of used shoes, and I was going like 5 days a week. And on the first day, I had really good climbers coming up to me, like giving me pointers and being really cool. And I was like, wow, you can be good at something and not be a dick. Because the surfers in Southern California were super aggressive. I saw fights. I got into arguments. I had some guy once purposely run over my board. It's just like there's only so many ways with 2 minute surfers. And, I saw a ton of arguments and fights. I mean, as soon as we got better at surfing, we started going north into Oxnard and Ventura and surfing the beach breaks where it wasn't as crowded. And that was also part of the reason why I skipped a lot of high school. Most people had jobs that they had to go into work at, and like you could surf Malibu with just a few people out. It was pretty good.
And everyone's just fighting over real estate at that point, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's just one person per wave. I mean, I learned how to whistle like really loud because I was pretty small, and like someone taking off in front of you, they don't know how big you are when you whistle really loud, and it worked pretty good. um, so then I graduated high school somehow. I actually had pretty good grades for not going there, and decided to go to Humboldt State. And I was into partying, smoking weed, I was kind of into the hippie thing and Grateful Dead. I was just like, was either going to San Diego State or Humboldt State, and I was like, I want to go to the redwoods. So, but by this point, I've been climbing for 6 months, and I moved up there, bought a wetsuit right away. Found out where the climbing was, which was on the beach, and went to the beach and met some climbers. And one of them still a really good friend of mine from the first day I went out. Um, the surfing up in Humboldt is really cold. It's inconsistent. It's powerful. It's not like surfing waves in Southern California. You get the beat down. Um, but all the climbing was on the beaches, so I was still on the beach. So mostly just bouldered and top rope. And then I met some of the crew of good climbers up there who were kind of developing a lot of areas. Like we were finding areas like the promontory and the footsteps and lost rocks. It was just like we'd start developing one area and we're like, whoa, let's go check that place out. And so, yeah, I got hooked in with like kind of the best climbers of the area and motivated. One of them became my boss. Um, Ended up dropping out of college.
Would you say that running into those people, would you say running into those people was like serendipitous, just because like you were lucky to run into the kind of good climbers of the area, or would you say that it was just a time where if you were a climber and you were in these areas, it's just such a small group of people that you're bound to run into these people
Yeah,
after
well,
a while?
it was definitely a small crew. And I was lucky. I mean, I definitely wanted to latch on to good climbers just because, like if they're climbing good, it's going to elevate your climbing. And like after wrestling for 4 years, I was pretty strong. I was a super shaky climber. I used to shake so bad, especially like when I started leading. Every time I'd pull up the rope, I'd almost shake myself off. It was nutty. It was, but I was gung ho. It was something
Like a full body shake or just the Elvis
mostly the
leg?
Elvis leg. It sometimes would go into the body, but the Elvis, yeah, especially leading, pulling up the rope because I knew like, man, if I fall with all this slack out, I'm gonna whip. So, yeah, so we just started developing routes, and it was a lot of fun, and that definitely shaped me because I love doing FAs. I'm still, finding FAs. I just put up a couple of routes on the east wall last week, actually. Um,
Yeah, you have almost 50 first ascents to your name at this point. Is that correct?
yeah, at least.
At least. What would you say the regular correct number is?
Yeah, I mean, in lifetime, over 100 easily. Here at the Leap, over 50 for sure. And then I've developed some smaller crags in the area. I got a handful of routes at Sugarloaf and Phantom Spires. I have a couple of crags I haven't only told my friends about. Not that I'm gatekeeping, but like, I don't know, also don't have to put it out there, right? It's kind of nice to have, you know, those little crags you can go to and hang out and just you and your buddies. And um, even though they're super quality, yeah, I don't really, I don't put my stuff on Mountain Project generally. Eventually it shows up there, but like, I don't mind not having my stuff out there. It's like I put up routes um, just because I enjoy the whole process. I'm not in there to like put up public service routes, I guess. I mean, I have put up some over on beginner areas, and I try and make those beginner climbs, but like I want to go out and just have an adventure and have fun, and like um some of my routes aren't appreciative because I'm not bolting them like sport climbs.
Yeah, I was going to say, do you climb them to or establish them in a way to repeat them, or is it like a one and done badge on your closet?
It depends on the route. I mean, the really hard ones I generally don't repeat because it takes me all my hardest red points have all been first descents.
Oh, whoa, that's cool.
Yeah, I'm not a projector unless it's a first ascent. Like I don't know.
So if you're not on sighting, the only exception to that rule is if it's your first ascent.
Well, yeah, I mean that's the only thing I'm like.
If I'm being like black, if I'm being black and white,
Yeah,
obviously.
yeah. I mean there's Grand Illusion down the hill at Sugarloaf, which was the first 8A, first 13 BC. Um, and I would like to actually project that. I've been on it a few times, but it's just like I'm not motivated enough just to go back over and over, to hang on this stuff. I mean, it's a rad, beautiful line. It's one of them. It's stunning, but like I guess I'm just not committed to it. I'd rather go climb other stuff and climb a bunch of different, and like on sighting. And I mean, I repeat stuff all the time here at Lover's Leap because I'm a guide here.
Yeah. Okay, so before we get too carried away, because this is a whole topic I do want to dive into a little bit later, kind of bringing us back to Humboldt, and you found this crew of climbers. You guys are kind of doing route developing. In terms of like separating, I guess, answer this question. Like, do you still surf when you can? Are you still like, is that something that still is a passion of yours?
Yeah, I've surfed. I surf a little bit, not as much as I used to. Obviously, living in the mountains, I'm 4 hours to like Santa Cruz. In the previous life, when I was married, my ex-wife and her family and we owned a house in southern Humboldt. It was like this 3-story geodesic dome that was falling apart that we bought for like the cost of the land and fixed it up. And then so we were spending the winters up there working on the house. I'd surf in the mornings, but when I got divorced, which is going on 6 years, surfing kind of stopped just because it's hard from up here, but this last winter, my lady Heidi, who's also a guide and runs Earth Play retreats, I helped her run a retreat in Puerto Rico, and it was a surfing, climbing, yoga trip. So yeah, it was pretty fun. So we surfed with our clients, our guests, one day, and then we were there before and after our guided trip, and we surfed a bit. And it's still like riding a bike. I can pop up and I'm a little slower on my pop ups, and I'm not as good as surfing's hard. It's one of the hardest things I've ever learned. I was actually just invited to go on a trip to Mexico, like leaving in a couple of weeks on the 17th. And it was a really good deal, but like it's my busy season right now. And I don't work a ton in the wintertime. So it's like, it was really tempting. Like it was a sweet spot in Mexico, right on the beach, right on the break, private break. It was pretty dreamy, but like, the adult comes out every once in a while.
Yeah, fair enough. So there's like in terms of like climbing and how this like passion started to develop. Do you remember like a specific moment where you just got hooked, like where it's just like, wow, like this is how I want to spend most of my time? Other friends that you had, like they weren't even interested to begin with. Were already surfing a ton. You had already kind of developed a passion for being outdoors. Like, what about climbing captivated you? And was there a specific moment that you can recall that kind of like encapsulates that feeling?
I was hooked right away. And like I said earlier, it was something always I wanted to do. And as soon as I went, just the movement, the excitement. Stony Point's got some high balls. And like one of the first, I still remember this boulder problem, they rated it like, they said it was like 5'6", but it's like 20 feet high. And I was up there shaking my way. My buddy's just like, yeah, you're high enough now. All I can do is spot your head. I'm like, great, thanks. But like, I don't know, just the movement on the stone, the freedom. especially just bouldering. I bouldered a lot in my first couple years. Now I almost never boulder. Um, but just the movement, getting the pump, driving home with my fingers out the window, cooling them down from the rough sandstone. And the climbers were just so cool, that was a big thing too. It was just climbers were cool, it wasn't like
Yeah,
going up.
that is cool. I like to hear that. I get that a lot from people talking about how the community is part of what pulled them in to the sport, and I think that's a special thing about climbing, because I think that sometimes nowadays, like, we can go to a sport crag and I don't know, I've had some bad experiences of just people not being that chill. They're not being very cool. And maybe that's like a new development to the sport of climbing, and just how many people there are and how much access there is, that it's not as cherished as it used to be. Do you have any experience with that, and newer climbers and kind of
The sport crags, I've noticed it's not as friendly as it used to be. I mean, especially when it's really busy. Like, I remember a day last year in the gallery, it was really busy, and people putting their stuff right on top of your stuff, and just not, not much.
It's like hanging on a route for too long.
Well, not even that, just like being on like top, it's just like I ended up leaving something there because someone came and put their backpack basically on top of my stuff, It's just like, whoa, dude, like, there's other spots. And I'm super friendly. I like to say, hey, what's up? And I make eye contact with people and smile. And it just seems like when it gets busy and crowded, especially at sport areas where people just know sport climbing and they've come out of the gym where it's crowded in these city gyms, it's like, it's just not as friendly compared to like when you're out at like a I don't know, and like Lover's Leap is really friendly. It's just everyone's just out here having fun.
It is an interesting thing you said. It's like almost has to do directly with the level of crowds. Like, the more crowded it is, the more angry we get in general. Doesn't matter what we do.
That's the surfing thing too. It's just like there's just a couple of people out in the water, everyone's chill, but like all of a sudden when there's a bunch of people and you're not catching waves and people are like snaking you and dropping in on you, you get a little frustrated and uptight, and you turn your smile upside down.
Yeah, I guess that's one good thing about the difference between climbing and surfing, is that there is always somewhere else to go if you want to go climbing by yourself. Whereas if you're surfing, there's really only one place or a few breaks, and the beach is only so big, the break is only so big.
I mean, there's only so many waves per hour, coming in. And then again, like the Leap does get busy. The Leap is right across the street from my house. If there was a window here, I'd be looking filtered views of it through the trees.
Sounds like you need a window there.
Yeah, well, I'm on the upstairs office, so but it's good that I don't have a straight view. I get more work done if I'm not looking at it all the time.
Yeah, fair enough. I send professional recording equipment to every single guest to ensure that you get top tier audio and video quality, and those costs add up. Right now, the show is also completely ad-free, and I would love to keep it that way. So if you've been enjoying the Climbing Majority podcast, would like to help keep this podcast ad-free, and want to help me cover shipping costs, consider joining our Patreon. For as little as $5 a month, you can help support the show, and you'll get access to exclusive episodes. You can find the link in our show notes, or head to patreon.com/the Climbing Majority podcast. That's patreon.com/the Climbing Majority podcast. During your kind of like formative climbing years, it sounds like you had a couple kind of like close calls and a traumatic accident that happened kind of early on. You want to kind of talk about those two experiences? I'm specifically talking about Flagpole Peak and then the rappelling accident. I'm curious as to what those stories were and kind of how they shaped your early years as a climber.
Okay, well, so Flagpole just actually happened this last fall. So
it was recent. Okay, let's do the rappel accident first then.
Yeah. So the rappel accident. So I just finished my first semester of school at Humboldt, and my first climbing partner, who had been climbing for about, he kind of had been climbing, bouldering, top roping, doing a little lead climbing, at least a year, if not 2 years before I started. But we hooked up right away. I bought my first pair of shoes off of him used. We started bouldering all the time at Stony Point. So I went to school off to Humboldt, and he went to school in Boulder. And then we finished our first semester. It was winter, Christmas break. So we hooked up. We went climbing. Actually on the beach down there in Southern California at Zuma Beach, Point Dume. It's a cool little like 80-foot cliff. He's just, and he'd been climbing a lot in Boulder, a lot of multi-pitch, a lot of trad, where I was still mostly bouldering and just a little top roping. You're soloing the flat irons and stuff. And again, I hadn't even been climbing for a year yet. Sounded super rad. And so we get to the beach. He's like, all right, yeah, let me lead this. It was a 5.9 bolted face. He's like, I'll lead this. I'll bring you up. We'll rappel down. And then you can lead it. I'm like, sure, sounds great. So he leads it. I follow it. I get up on top. He's like, all right, yeah, let's rappel. Like, you rappel first. I'm like, okay. Again, I didn't look at his anchor, didn't do anything. And this is it's super crazy and tragic. He's like, oh shit, I forgot my belay device. Let me go first. I'm like, okay. You're the man. Yeah. So hand him my belay device. He puts himself on rappel, weights the rope and the anchor, and he just had one sling around the block on top and didn't tie or didn't finish his water knot. And so as soon as he weighted the anchor, it pulled. And he fell 80 feet onto the beach, onto the sand, which was somewhat good because it was sand, not talus. We were on an LA County beach. So someone saw the fall on the beach, ran to a lifeguard, got the lifeguard called the helicopter. It's still just a blur. It was stupid too, because there was a walk off. I ran down. I was down in less than a minute as soon as I saw it happened. Helicopter.
Wow.
It was just, so the helicopter landed, got him in the helicopter, flew him off. I had to call his mom and just tell her what happened. It was super, super rough. I turn on the radio, I'm driving, and the song that comes on is Tom Petty, Free Falling. These are things it's just it's embedded in my head.
Wow. Jesus.
So he ended up surviving, but he was paralyzed from the waist down. So he was in the hospital for a while.
Is he alive today?
He passed away about 6 or 7 years ago from a stroke, which was probably from his accident, just being paraplegic, not being able to move.
Mm-hmm. Gosh, that's so sad and so terrifying too.
Yeah. And it just teaches, the major lesson is you got to check yourself. You got to check your partner. I was about to clip into that anchor, and it could have been me, but I should also check his anchor, right?
It's a tricky one though, because he was almost in a mentor role for you. He was the one that was clearly experienced. He was the one that had, the knowledge, and he was almost kind of in a guiding role. And I think it's really easy for us to get I would say complacent, but it's not even complacent. It's just your trust is in that person, especially if you're new. You don't really know what to check for, and you don't really know. But I think, the lesson there is just to, even the most knowledgeable people, however that, it's all relative, right? Knowledgeable in terms, one person's going to have a lot more experience than one person, and that person's going to be, not very knowledgeable compared to somebody else, but it's all of our jobs to check each other and to be as safety conscious as we can be. Because that's those kind of simple mistakes are what really take people out. Did you hear about the thing that happened here in Red Rock recently? The fatality?
Oh, on the simul wrap, where
apparently what happened is they only brought gree-grees, and
I did hear about that. That wasn't.
Yeah, she gree-greed into the wrong side.
Yeah, I did hear about that.
She wasn't experienced with multi-pitch systems, and they didn't bring ATCs, and she just ended up clipping on the wrong side. And the second that thing was weighted, the whole system failed.
Yeah. Now I did know that.
And it's just like, it's really scary to not really know the dangers that are right in front of you sometimes. How did that experience shake you? How did it like affect you in terms of risk management? It seemed like with the nature of it and how close you were to making that same mistake yourself, I would imagine it had quite a large impact on your sense of risk management and safety awareness in climbing.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, I was really apprehensive to rappel for a while, and I mean, still to this day. So this was in '89, going on 36 years ago. It's still in my head, and like every time I put myself on rappel and clip into an anchor, and I when I'm guiding and teaching skills, I definitely, like that lady in Red Rocks, she should have, before she unclipped from the old, she should have tested the new and weighted it all. Like taken all the weight on the new system while she was still clipped into the old system, and, watching my partners, checking even the most experienced, because sometimes when you're really good and if I've been climbing forever, you miss things sometimes, especially if you're in a rush or if it's getting dark or storms coming in. So I've always got eyes on people, and I got eyes on myself too.
Has that like level of detail and attention to detail and level of awareness, have you found certain moments where you've literally saved yourself again or saved somebody else's life?
Yeah, I mean, I've caught people like missing on, putting the rope through the ATCs, only catching one loop. Right now, nothing's jumping out of my mind.
And it happened early on too. I think that's something through this podcast and interviewing these, so many different people, what I found is the people who have the lowest amount of injuries or the like either no injuries at all or very like few injuries in their climbing career. It's usually because they learned the lesson of risk really early on in their climbing career. And it's also been where they learned it through somebody else's trauma or somebody else's accident, unfortunately, that was very close to them, like seeing a partner fall, or like in your case, that happened. Like those lessons, they come at a cost of somebody else's trauma and somebody else's, but it almost had benefited these people in such a profound way where it led to a injury-free career almost.
Yeah, exactly.
How do you feel like, this is a question I'm not sure can actually be answered. How do you feel like we can learn that lesson without having to learn it directly or have something traumatic happen to someone directly next to us?
Reading accident reports is a really good one, like, and since you don't have a connection, it's a little easier to read them, but like reading about other people's mistakes for sure. Now, I don't like watching like the weekend whippers, and I've never liked watching like gnarly ski accidents or skateboard. Like I don't need to see that. But like reading about like mistakes and how what they did wrong, and thinking about how that, how to make that not happen to you or your partners is huge. But yeah, you got to check yourself before you wreck yourself, right?
Yeah, I almost feel like the weekend whipper and the Instagramification of like taking falls almost like normalizes it.
Yeah.
in a bad
Oh,
way.
definitely.
It's like it's almost like it's like not the right kind of data that we're absorbing. It's normalizing the fall and everything, and I just don't think that's great information for most people.
Yeah, no, I agree because luckily all these falls they show no one's getting hurt, and then they're being put in on a spotlight. Like, oh yeah, you can take these huge whippers and not get hurt. But like, here at the Leap, it's you don't want to be falling until you're like at least at 5'9" or 10 or above, just because it's so featured. Even a small fall, you can break an ankle or a leg because there's so much stuff to hit. Um, people come on out wanting to learn how to fall, and it's just which is a skill, but like generally you don't want to start falling until you don't want to fall. In these earlier routes. You learn how to fall in a gym where it's steep, or on a sport route where it's steep. You don't want to be falling on these low angle slabs with dikes jutting out. Like one of my guides says, you don't go to driving school and they teach you how to crash. They teach you how to drive.
I love that analogy. Yeah. No, I mean, I've talked about it a lot on this podcast, so I won't beat a dead horse here, but I'm very much on the camp of like, do everything you can not to fall. And obviously when you start to climb hard enough, you are going to put yourself in a position where falling is almost inevitable. But normalizing this thought process of just like, yeah, take the whip because you need to try hard. It's like, it's just that to me, it's a completely wrong mentality. And I think that like taking at a crux, if you're pumped and you don't really know the beta and you're not really sure if your gear is good, like put a piece in and take and rest out, shake it out, like feel better about your state, especially on sighting. Cause I feel like a lot of us are on sighting these multi-pitch routes. And yeah, I just think like the general blanket term of just like try till you fall is terrible advice for most trad climbers.
Yeah. Yeah, especially at the lower levels. Now, where I'm at, and like I said earlier, I like to on-site. I fall all the time. I do whip a lot, but generally, I know when it's safe to whip and when it's not. And, if
That's the
I
key,
know,
right? Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I know how to down climb. I'm a really good down climber, and I can put a piece of gear in really quick and take too, but I love the on-site. And if I'm safe, I'll go until I fall. Just because you only get one chance to on site.
Yeah, I think that's just a catch. I think a lot of us, myself included, get really star-eyed by the on-site, and I think that it's easy for us to put ourselves in harm's way for that cherry when we don't really know exactly what we're even risking in the first place.
Yeah.
How about your road trip? It sounds like after Humboldt, you, I think you lost your painting job that you had at the time.
Yeah.
And you just went on a big long road trip with a friend. Tell me about that and how it led you to now be in the Lover's Leap area.
Yeah. So, yeah, I dropped out of Humboldt State in 92. My main climbing partner worked for the city of Arcata as a painter. And he gave me a job, painting, and they hired climbers because we were painting those like massive water tanks and located inside the redwood forest. It was a pretty rad job, like, because we'd have to rappel down and paint these massive tanks. So did that, got laid off because of budget cuts. So I ended up going back down to my mom's house for a month and a half, and I worked for a painter from like 8 to 5, and then I'd come home, eat some food, and then go deliver pizzas from 6 to 11. So worked 70 hours a week for like 6 weeks, and saved a bunch of money, and yeah, hit the road with Brian K, aka the Coiler. He just left Humboldt too. We became climbing partners. I had met him in Joshua Tree, one of my first trips there, and then he moved up to Humboldt, and we started climbing a lot together. Super character, really good climber, really good on his feet. And he was in a car accident, so he got a little settlement out of that, and he bought a new truck. He's like, let's go on the road. So yeah, we hit the road. We went to Joshua Tree for a couple of weeks. We went to Red Rocks. We stayed there for 7 weeks, and he'd camp for free at Oak Creek Canyon and Black Velvet. And it was a hoot, Mike. And like camping out at Oak Creek Canyon was just so good. Um, and we just had a good crew of people, these guys who were putting up FAs. One guy was putting up a bunch of FAs, and where he'd make money, he'd go to the construction sites around Vegas and pick up all their scrap wood, and then go out to the reservoirs like Lake Mead and Lake Powell and sell firewood and that's how he was feeding his cows. It was pretty classic.
You were there for 7 weeks. What were some of your highlights back then?
Well, Fiddler on the Roof was definitely one of them. Like Crimson Chrysalis. I mean, we were like Humboldt climbers, like mostly like single pitch, top roping, like sport climbing. So, it was kind of a big deal. One of those guys, the guy who was grabbing the firewood, one day we went out and like freed one of the routes he put up, which we started on, which was before we started on Johnny Vegas. We went up Johnny Vegas, so this is before it was Johnny Vegas, and then went into what they now call walking on Sunshine. Have you done that on Solar Slab?
I've done Johnny Vegas.
Yeah. So walking on Sunshine.
Are you telling me it's not called Johnny Vegas?
Well, I mean, it's called Johnny Vegas. I mean, we did the first couple of pitches before it was established, and then went over left and climbed this like 5-10 thin crack, which is now called, we didn't put any bolts in it. It's got some bolts on it, which whatever, it's great. It's super good that walking on Sunshine. And then
okay, I'll have to check it out.
And then did something off right on the upper slab to the right of like Sunflower. And, it was kind of like the Horn Dogger Select. But like it got reported wrong, but who cares, so that was cool. I mean, just kind of like getting into the trad climbing, the multi-pitch climbing at that period. We were also on the road for 8 months. So like, we were in our early 20s, just partying, drinking shitty beer and smoking shitty weed. And like, we were climbing every day. We were going sport climbing. Like, it didn't really matter. And it was wintertime though, so it was kind of rainy. So there was times where we just hang out and just party and hike the canyons. But then we headed out to Arizona, Flagstaff, Cochise, in Colorado, Durango. Then we went to Turkey Rocks in the South Platte and stayed there for 5 weeks. And we just got to do a route a day and just hang out. Then into Wyoming. And we were uber dirt bags. Like we were in Boulder and we're like, I mean, we were such dirt bags. Like it was we were just camping out, living in the cars, and showering in the creeks.
What was the most dirtbaggy thing you did during those 8 months?
Well, we just stunk. Like we basically got run out of Boulder for stinking. So.
One shower, 8 months.
Yeah, like we went to some gun falls and in the
hey, bro, will you scrub my back?
Yeah, I mean we were like washing off in the creeks and rivers, but it wasn't like.
Yeah.
It was pretty bad, but you're living in it, you don't know. And then we, hit Devil's Tower, and then we went into the Wind Rivers, and my buddy Brian, he bailed. He got sick of hanging out, but in between we had another buddy, Chris, join, and he stayed with me, and so we went into the Wind Rivers, and we were like, let's go for a month. We were like running low on funds, so we put a rope each because we used to climb with 2 ropes in the mountains, right? And a month's worth of food on our back, and we hiked into the winds, and we made it 3 weeks. before we were over it, like the bugs and stuff. But like, yeah, we made it. It took us 2 days to hike 10 miles because our packs were so heavy. And like one time I fell over and I was like a turtle because my pack, I couldn't get back up. So yeah, then after we left the winds, we're like, all right, well, we're out of money. Let's head back to California. And we actually stopped in at the casino in Reno to like spend our last money to see if we could like win some more money to keep the road trip going. Obviously that
I'm assuming that didn't go very well.
No, we probably got a couple of shitty cocktails out of the deal. But yeah, and then we're like, well, let's check out this Lover's Leap. So we pulled into the Leap, and right away we met some cool people bouldering and kind of like hooked in with the community. Like there was a bunch of like climbers working at the lodge, free camping, just like we camped right at the base. My buddy Chris took off. I was just living in the campground. The lodge was doing a new addition, so got a job digging ditches for $5 an hour. And I was happy as could be. I was making money, dollar beers at the lodge, and living in the campground, getting off work, bouldering, doing a little easy soloing. Winter came, they liked me, they made me a bartender. I never did the snow thing, so I tried snowboarding, and surfing is probably the hardest thing I've ever learned to do. And I think snowboarding, because of that, snowboarding was the easiest thing I've ever learned. It just was like, it's just like I knew how to surf, like snowboarding, you're on a surfboard, but the mountain's not moving, so it got into that. And yeah, I ended up just kind of like really falling in love with the area and the community. And ended up buying a house. Yeah. House in the 90s, started my guide business in the early 2000s. So yeah. Yeah, I'm now the longest living local here at the Leap, which is kind of
no way. Wow.
Yeah, this
that's
one
cool.
Couple. And that, yeah, so I'm number 1, and now my girlfriend's number 46, which is, we have 46 people living here. So that's kind of classic.
Yeah, I was going to say how to keep track, but if there's only 46 of you, then that's a really small community. I would imagine there's some drama.
Not really. I mean, drama.
That's really cool to hear.
Yeah, our community's rad. It's super cool. Like, and there's Squirrel is the owner of this little store here. He's got a climbing shop, good food, good beer. I mean, he'd give you a shirt off his back, and like he does burger nights on Saturday nights during climbing season for $5. He just wants to like, it's just a cool hang. It's just a cool like climbing scene. And we actually even started a little climbing festival here, Lovers Fest. This year will be our 3rd year doing it.
Wow.
So, yeah,
that's awesome.
It's pretty rad. Yeah, it's a special place. Super special. I feel so fortunate to live here.
That's awesome. Yeah, it seems like you just kind of stumbled upon it too. It's really cool that you, and it's so secluded. It's so like just kind of out there and away from everything. It's really cool that you, you found home there. I'd say that's a rather unique situation.
Yeah. No, I'm definitely. See, I feel so lucky and fortunate, and. Like Lover's Leap and being a climber and living at a climbing area, and I got the American River, and it's not really secluded though. Like it sounds secluded. I mean, maybe in the wintertime, but like Tahoe's 20 miles away, Highway 50. I mean, that's the biggest drag is we have Highway 50 running through it. But like right now it's so quiet because it's in a shoulder
I guess
seat.
I just mean like geographically, you're like really tight in this canyon, and it's like, you're secluded. You can't see very far, it's like a very tight, small little area.
Yeah, true.
What's the history of Leap like, both in a kind of like human history sense and also a geography sense? Like, how did that place get settled, and also do you know how and why those rocks exist the way they do? Let's be real for a second. The current blueprint for a successful climbing podcast is simple. Interview the best climbers in the world. Big names mean big followings. lots of SEO power, and a built-in audience that helps boost every episode. But this show has never been about that. From the beginning, I have made it my mission to bring you stories from the climbing majority. The climbers who don't live in the limelight. The ones who avoid interviews, quietly put up routes, and give back in ways that are rarely recognized. And while that's what makes this show special, it also means we have an uphill battle when it comes to growth. And that is where you come in. If you're psyched about the show, if you've been inspired, entertained, or fired up about an episode, word of mouth is the single most important way you can help the show. Share an episode with a friend. Play one on a group road trip. Post about the show on social media. Jump onto Reddit threads and Mountain Project forums and share with people what you've been listening to. Be sure to tag the show, tag your favorite guests, and spread the word. And if you want to help even more, I'm currently sending posters to climbing gyms around the country. If you'd like to sport one in your climbing gym, be sure to reach out. Email me at theclimbingmajoritypodcast@gmail.com, and I will be sure to send you one. Let's band together and show the climbing community that the climbing majority has a voice.
Well, let's start with the rocks and what I know. It's a glacier carved canyon, and you can see it when you're up above. Looking down, you can see the U shape. So what makes Lover's Leap unique is the horizontal dikes. And now I forget, you lived in Marina. You climbed up the leap a little bit?
I have. Yeah, I did the line. I think that was the only route I had the pleasure of doing, but I've been there. I've seen the dikes. Yeah.
Yeah, the line's super, super classic. And, it's like, there it is. But yeah, the dikes make it super climbable. And supposedly there was the first magma pluton that happened, and it started to cool and fracture. And then there was a secondary intrusion of magma that was forced through the seams and cracks that cooled at a different rate. So it's a harder rock, so it erodes slower. And in some places they can stick out 6 to 8 inches. And I actually find like the climbing at the Leap and Red Rock's kind of similar just because it's so featured. You can be climbing these moderates that are super steep, instead of Red Rocks, you have the plates, but at the Leap, you're grabbing the dikes. It's super fun. Even like when you're on easy terrain, like 5 easy, you still feel like you're climbing because you got like some exposure because it's steep, and the views. It's really pretty. Now, we did experience a fire in 2021 that ripped through the Leap, which was pretty devastating. I was actually just going through some photos of the fire this morning, and like seeing the photos before the fire and how green everything was. And then we're surrounded by burnt dead trees that are all starting to fall. It's kind of sketchy, actually. Like we rebuilt a lot of the trails, and then like after the winter, it's like, well, this massive tree just took out that part of the trail. We're building another trail around it. So that's an ongoing project we have here, is just the aftermath of the fire and the tree fall. Luckily, like there
what was that
trees.
experience like when the fires were? What was that like when the fires were actually like ripping through? Like, did you guys have to evacuate? Like, how close were you losing your residence and your job and everything? Like, what was that like?
Yeah, so the fire started about 50 miles away from here, and it was getting closer and closer, but I was just like, it's not going to get here. It's got to go over this river. It's got to go through this canyon. It's got to go through this river. That town's been evacuated a few times, and the fire's never gotten here. My neighbors are like, aren't you worried? I'm like, nah, we're good. And like 5 days before the fire got here, like it was super, super smoky. And like my girlfriend and I, we did some brush clearing. I live right up against the Forest Service wilderness area. So we did some brush clearing, and I had backpacking permits for the Palisades. And I was just like, well, what are we going to do? Like hang out here and breathe smoke? I think, we've kind of done as much clearing as we can really do. So let's go backpacking. So we drive and go into the Palisades, and it's some, I had like gotten these permits 6 months in advance, and I wanted to solo Temple Crag into Mount Gailey and to Mount Sill. It was like a goal of mine to do that link up solo, and I did it and came back, woke up the next morning and the winds were kind of ripping. I'm like, hey, we got to go. And she's like, what the hell? I'm like, no, I think we need to go. And as soon as we got into cell service, my phone lights up from friends. Hey, where are you? And then a call from the county. This is the El Dorado County. You're under mandatory evacuation. It's like, oh shit. I didn't expect that. So we drive back, and I talked my way through the road closure, and they let me back in. I had a little cab over camper for my truck. I put that on there, kind of did the last few things, grabbed some stuff, and drove out in tears. Like it was here. It was just like 10 miles away. Ash was falling out of the sky. It was black. I was like, fuck, I'm never gonna see my house again. Like if I lost my house, I'd lose my business. It just, it was scary. So ended up being evacuated for 32 days. I just drove down to Bishop and went climbing, and then just kind of climbed around. At one point, when the fire was right on Strawberry, the following morning, I woke up and there's these infrared maps you can get online that are like in real time. And I live on a dead end road on the cul-de-sac, and I'm the last house there. So it's kind of like, if you look at this map, you're like, oh, that's where my house is. It's the end of that road. And there was a red dot right there. I'm like, wow, it's over. And then slowly, on Twitter, they were, journalists were allowed past road closures. And like all of a sudden we started getting news. Like they saved everything in Strawberry. Like Strawberry was like big time on the news. And yeah, they saved the town. Like we only lost one structure now. Yeah, it's crazy. So the firefighting crew did such a good job. Now they had a huge force here. They were stationed at the lodge and at the store. And they were here at least 7 days before the fire got here. And they cut line all the way around town and laid hoses. And before the fire got here, they backburned everything. So it pushed it around Strawberry, went around Strawberry, and then annihilated the canyon above us. Like 300 homes got burned. I had friends lose their houses, and one of my good friends, he's almost finished rebuilding, and so that's going on 4 years now. So yeah, and then like coming back, yeah, it was, I got back into the house, and then the following day they had, all the Forest Service was closed, but like I had a log. I could sneak. I didn't have to walk through the campground and the trailhead. There was a log over the river. So I snuck into the leap and like soloed and hiked on there. I soloed up Corrugation Corner, and there's like trees still on fire. I was like, whoa, Mordor, it was just nutty. Like shit was still kind of like, probably not the smartest thing, but like, this is my home. Like I had to go check it out,
Yeah, what a wild experience though. I bet it was like a apocalyptic environment to be climbing in.
It was nutty. I was like in
wild.
shock. And like I was like, I hugged right on the ridge, the rock ridge, because like, there's these burned out stumps and holes, you could fall in and just be like a pig in the ground, so I was like hugging that, and like there'd be trees. Yeah, it was nutty. And then
ash everywhere, I would imagine.
Yeah, so much. And like if on the hillsides, if there was rocks, like if you just touched the rocks, it was so ashy and silty, like there was nothing holding them down. You touch them and they just roll down the hill, like any size from small to big, because the earth wasn't holding them up anymore. It was like floating in ash. It was a trip. And then I came back, again, whatever, a week or so later, and like walked the base of the east wall where the line is, and all the bushes were gone. We didn't have trees up against the cliff, so the cliff didn't get damaged because the bushes just burned hot and quick. but I was like hiking around and finding all the gear that was dropped because all the bushes were just gone. And like I was finding like melted nuts and carabiners and shit, a bunch of
No
nut
way.
tools. And it was like, I describe it as like, it was like an Easter egg hunt, but all the eggs were rotten. You're like, oh, look at this cam. It's all like melted and shit. So, yeah, then they had
Do you have any of those like trinkets left over from your plunder?
yeah, and I just saw them the other day. They're sitting on this table in my backyard because I thought it'd be cool to make like a mobile or something, or display of like
Yeah,
coal
totally.
or
Yeah,
fire,
absolutely.
done. Um,
Mm-hmm.
um, and like it was interesting too. I found like a Metolius Master Cam, and like the sling was all melted, but like the little, they use the Kevlar cord triggers. It was fine. Just
Mm-hmm.
that Kevlar is like such heat
No
resistant.
way.
Yeah, it was a trap.
Okay, good to know.
Yeah.
There's always things. Those things look so visually flimsy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's wild.
Well, on the carabiners, like the spring would melt out. Like, so you'd push open the gate and the spring was gone, but like it was still kind of like, the aluminum didn't melt. Yeah, it's a trip.
That's a trip. Yeah, I remember the day I got into my accident was the same day that Caldor fire started.
Oh,
And like
really?
I drove away out of Cloudburst Canyon looking in the mirror to like a black plume of smoke like in the sky. It was so weird that like it's like obviously they're not connected, but like after that injury, I'm like in a wheelchair for 6 months and there's just like fire everywhere. I'm just like, man, what is my life? It was terrible. It was terrible. Yeah, that fire was really devastating up there.
Yeah, it was. And what the houses they saved in Tahoe, like saving Christmas Valley was just amazing, like it was definitely impressive what the firefighters did. And like just the limited time I was here in that smoke, like getting the last stuff out, just thinking about those guys having to like work and live in those conditions all summer long. I mean, we've had some really bad summers here. Tahoe sucks in the smoke from all over California. So the last couple of years have actually been, since the fire, we haven't had a really smoky summer. Maybe just because this part of the state is all burned, but we've been lucky so far. But all the bushes have come back so strong. Like we're trimming bushes back at the leap around my house. I was just doing fire clearing this the other day. It's just like, man, these bushes are back. Like, fire starts, it's like, it's a real thing. Like I had a friend lose her house in the Paradise Fire 6 or 7 years ago, and she's totally got PTSD. And it's, losing your house is, yeah, is so, it's so tragic. But like, I flew into Reno a couple years ago, and there was some fire in Nevada. And like, as we got out of the airplane, it was so smoky. It like made me like tight just from the remembering what was going on. I'm like, man, I didn't lose my house, and yeah,
Now,
fires are real.
I would imagine that the valley, with how burned it got, it's at a much lower risk of having such a severe fire going through that area again, right?
Yeah. Well, it just depends on
in
where
like a
it
near to short time frame.
Yeah.
That's
If
fair.
a fire
Mhm.
starts like down canyon, yeah, we're good. We got a good fire break. Now, if a fire starts in the campground here at Lever's Leap, strawberry's still green, and it's crazy too how long they let the campers in the campground have fires. Um, it's nutty. I've called and complained. Neighbors have called and complained. They're just like, well, there's a campground host and there's water in the campground, so they're allowed to have fires. It's just like, well, the host is asleep at 3 o'clock in the morning. The water's hundreds. It's a walk. They're walking campsites. I'm just like, people leave their fire. I've walked through the campground at noon and had to put out people's fires. It's just like it's you. You think we'd learn something, but like America and their hot dogs and their fires, I guess camping, I don't know.
I mean, I will say a campfire camping is pretty quintessential to the experience, and I can't help but admit, but I am slightly bummed whenever there's like a campfire, like no campfire sign. Obviously, I would say in general, people are probably unfortunately not very responsible with their fires, which
I
is
mean,
which is
I
unfortunate.
enjoy a good campfire too, but like if it's 85 degrees at
Mhm.
night and people are having these big fires and they're not even standing next to them, and then they go to sleep, and most people don't put out their fires properly. That's the big thing. Like, and it's inconvenient too. Like you have to walk 100 yards and coming back and forth to dump water on it. It's like you got to put those things out. And the community is surrounded by that campground, and the campers, they're coming up. They don't know. I didn't
Yeah,
know when I
just a
lived in this.
yeah, the furnace. That's scary. I can imagine the PTSD and being just like, yeah, just being very triggering to see mismanaged fires so close to home. That would be definitely stressful. So your trip, not trip, your passion to become a guide. What inspired you to take that route rather than just like, I'm a climber, this is what I do. I work my day job and I go out and solo and I climb. Like, what about guiding, and why did you want to go down that road to share this passion with others in such a direct way?
I kind of just naturally always liked taking people on hikes, even before I was a climber. Like I just like showing people around and like showing people a good time, and just like, yeah, check this out. Let's go crawl through this hole, and like let's go climbing. Let's have some fun.